I've got one scripture, and this goes out to my mom because I know my mom's looking down today. I lost her in July of 2021. My mother was one of the greatest influences in my life. As I travel the world, I have gotten in trouble for mentioning God, mentioning the Bible, mentioning Scripture. I'll have a corporate client say, we'd love to bring you in, but we really don't want you to. And then I just say, well, then hire someone else because I am not going to hide my faith. That's who I am. My mother's favorite passage, and when she passed away at the funeral, my brother, I said to my brother, I said, I have one brother, I said, here's all I want. I said, I don't want anything other than I want her Bible. Just give me her Bible. Now, my mother was a front row, Bible spit and spewing, John 3:16, for God so loved the world, you better have your life right, Baptist. And if you ever sat beside my mother in an airplane, I'm going to make you a promise. You're meeting God. So I take her on a Southwest flight, and Pastor Stan mentioned, I got a book called Making a Difference, right? It was the second book I wrote, became a national bestseller, and the iconic founder of Southwest Airlines, Herb Kelleher, wrote the foreword to the book, right? Herb wants to meet me. So I fly down to Texas, right? But I take my mother with me. And my mother had never been on an airplane, and she said, why are we, because I lived in Pittsburgh at the time. By the way, I'm from the home of the 6-time world champion Pittsburgh Steelers. Did I just get booed in church? By the way, there is only one team that I do not like. We're going to get it out early. Dallas Cowboys. Are there any Cowboy fans in here? Get out. Actually, I don't mind the Cowboys. Seriously, I'll tell you why. You're harmless. She's not laughing. Anyways, back to the story. So I say to my mom, I said, Mom, Southwest doesn't fly to Pittsburgh. And back in the day, I said, we can't arrive to meet the founder of Southwest Airlines on a U.S. Airways flight back in, well, anyways, we're there. How many of you have flown Southwest Airlines? Raise your hand. Yeah, so if you've never flown Southwest Airlines, it's all open seating. You don't get a boarding pass that has a seat assignment. You get either boarding group A, B, or C. You board accordingly. The first 30 passengers have A, the next 30 have B, and so on and so forth. So my mother, we're at the gate, and she says to me, she goes, well, where am I going to sit? And I go, Mom, we're going to get any seat you want. I said, we're going to be one of the first 30. She said, I want an aisle. I said, we'll get an aisle, Mom. I said, the configuration of this plane, there's 3 seats on one side, 3 seats on the other. I said, there's 32 rows. I said, do the math. She goes, I'm not doing the math. She said, I want an aisle. And she said, I want it between row 1 and row 7. I'm like, eh. So I fixed it, right? I'm a fixer. 1 minute prior to boarding, you should have been there, you heard, Gilliland, party of 2, Gilliland, party of 2, please pre-board. My mother said, how do we get to pre-board? I said, well, Mom, one of the people traveling has to have issues. You need to know my mother looked right at me and said, good thing you're with us. We're going down the jetway. Here's my mother. Love her, right? We're walking down the jetway. Stops me in the jetway. There's nobody in the jetway but her and I. She goes, I wonder who God pre-assigned to sit by me. I go, Mother, it's all open seating. There are no seat assignments. She said, every seat in this plane has been pre-assigned, and we know who made the assignments. Somebody's going to sit beside me that needs to hear the gospel of Jesus. And I said, all right. We get on the plane. She says, why don't we sit across from each other? Yeah, why sit beside your mother when you can sit across from her? Meanwhile, I'm thinking it's a pretty good idea, right? Thinking, if she gets wound up, get ready. And then I looked at her, I said, what's in the bag? She has brought with her 6 New Testaments because she hands them out. She's going to witness, right? I'm going to let my light shine. I'm like, all right, Mother. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there because when I fly Southwest, because it's open seating, you can do things to keep people from sitting by you. And don't give me the look. If you ever fly Southwest Airlines, and some of you are smiling because you've done this, you have put a bag in the seat beside you, you have leaned into the seat to make it disappear. Now me, I do this. Well, I couldn't do that. My mother's with me. Now watch what happens. The third boarding group starts coming on. Now it starts filling up, right? Aisles are going, window seats are going, the middle seats are the only thing that are left, right? This guy walks on the plane. We make eye contact, and I went, yeah. Because when he saw me, I thought he's going to probably and I'm like, oh, no. So I gave him a look. I mean, it wasn't a Christian thing to do, but I gave him the look. I gave him the I don't think so look. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, that's not why he didn't sit by me. I believe it's what I said to him. I said, I don't think so. Like it was yesterday, he looked at my mother and the empty seat beside her, and if you don't think that God ordained this to happen, he looked at her, looked at the seat beside her, and with a rich, deep voice said, "Ma'am, is that seat saved?" And all I heard my mother say is, "I don't know about that seat, but I am." I'm like, here we go. Here's the great part. He sat down, and the whole flight, she gave him the gospel. I mean, she went the whole way from Matthew, Mark, through Luke, and through John. Her favorite verse, 3 John 1:4. And when that Bible was open at that funeral, I went up, and that's the first time I cried. Because I looked at, and I said, you know what? I looked at my brother, and I said, she is smiling. Because 3 John 1:4 said, no greater joy than to have my children walk in truth. This morning, Pastor Brandy, I was out there. Where the teachers, if you're a teacher, stand up right now. I want to see who you are and where you're at. Give them a hand. Yeah. Pastor Brandy out there was a little celebration out there. And the thing about it is, I'm just out there enjoying it. I'm taking it in, drinking coffee, thinking, we don't have coffee at our church, but, I'm going to make a recommendation when I get back, So I'm out there having a good time. And then Pastor Brandy said something I thought, wow. She said, you know, as a teacher who knows God, who's filled with that Spirit, they're different. And I used to, as Pastor Brandy was saying it, I started thinking about my mom, because she used to say this. She said, no matter where you're at in life, if you're in an airplane, in a hotel, doesn't matter where you're at, have somebody look at you and say, I want whatever it is he has. I want what he has. I know when I fly, if that flight attendant knows God. You can tell there's a sense about them. But my mother is a person that when I think about the influence she had on my life, I think, what if she wouldn't have been a part of my life? I wrote the book, Making a Difference, and in the book, one of the things that I pulled out was a question I'm going to ask everybody here this morning. This just isn't for teachers. This is for everyone. But I want teachers to understand that in the fall, it is estimated that I have spoken in front of almost 250,000 teachers live. Because in the fall, I will go and I will open up a school district. But it's amazing because in 2020, when the pandemic shut everything down, I had a little extra time, and I told one of my staff, I said, I want to do a survey. I want to send out a survey, and I want to ask a simple question. Now, I have a lot of followers, and I said, let's make sure we get a random sampling. Let's get at least, let's get 1,000 people in responding to this question. Here's the question I ask in the survey, so I'm going to ask you this question. I want you right now to think about 5 people. Think about 5 people that made the biggest difference in your life. Now, I heard Pastor Brandy say, teacher used to come up, put her arm around her, say, you are so smart. You are so smart. But I want you to think about 5 people. Right now, you're thinking about those people. Some of you, I can tell you this, and I'm not just saying, Nolan, and Waylon, I'll guarantee you, mom and dad are on their list of 5. Just the way they lit up talking about their mom and dad, proud of their mom and dad. And by the way, mom and dad, if you're listening backstage, there's an announcement from Nolan and Waylon. I just want to tell you, I said, anything you'd like me to tell your mom and dad? Nolan, he goes, we'd like a sister. There you go. They won't be at the next service singing. They're nervous, right? But I asked the question, 5 people that made the biggest difference. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about those 5 people you would put on that list, and I want you to write a word beside their name. I want you to write beside their name what it is that they gave you. If they're on your list of 5 people that made the biggest difference in your life, what did they give you? My mother's on my list of 5. Beside her name, I put strength. My mother used to say this, son, what you go through in life is either going to make you bitter or better, stronger or weaker. 2020 either made you bitter or better, stronger or weaker. When you face adversity, it is either bitter, better, stronger, weaker. Matthew talks about being the light of the world. You teachers, you are the light of the world. You're a light of the world, but here's what I want to share with you. Sometimes people will say, well, if we could just see the light at the end of the tunnel. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to be the light in the tunnel so people can see their way through the tunnel to get to the end of the tunnel. So many times we miss it. So beside that word, beside the person, I want you to put that word, whatever it is they gave you. But here was the survey that came back. We had a lot come back. Thousands actually came back. I was surprised because when you do surveys, there's a percentile and the random sampling. But here's what I want every teacher in this room to hear. Moms, dads, pastors were high. High percentage had a pastor. A coach was high. But 84% of every person that responded, one of their 5 people was a teacher. Ladies and gentlemen, in a single day, in a single classroom, at a single moment, teachers, why do we appreciate you? You can change the trajectory of someone's life. The trajectory. My son is a high school football coach. My son said to me, he said, Dad, when he took over the position, he said, Dad, will you come in? He said, will you come in and will you talk to the team? My first game, he said, I want you to get them all fired up. I said, I will only talk to your team before your first game ever coaching high school football if I talk to your coaches before they coach any practice. So before practice started in August, some of the coaches walked in reluctantly, the machos. And I looked at all of them and I said, I want you to win every game you coach. I want you to be competitive, but I said, that's not why you should be here. Because I said, here's what I want to ask you. I want you to understand that it's not about an offensive play, a defensive play. In the course of a game, in a single moment, you can change the trajectory of one of these young men's lives. Because I said, here's what ends up happening. 10 years from now, they'll be graduated. They will be out into the real world. And 10 years from now, if I were to ask the players that played for you, list 5 people that made the biggest difference in your life. How many of you coaches would make their list? They're not going to remember how many games you won or how many games you lost or the interceptions, the fumbles, or the touchdowns. They're going to remember the impact you had in their life. So when you think about that list, think about who's on that list. Also on that list is my former secretary in corporate America. Stan had asked me what I did before this. I worked for a greeting card company. I was asked to write some of the funny cards because of my sense of humor. And I have a twisted sense of humor. I had a woman one time say to me, she said, I need a card for my ex. I said, you want a card for your ex? Yeah, what would you write in a card? You're a writer. What would you write? I don't know. I said, like on the outside of the card, you could write, I'm miserable without you. And then when they opened it up, it could say, it's almost like you're here. I don't know, Look at some of you. Don't write that down. People go, man, that's really good stuff. Yeah. What'd you get out of church this morning? Don't. But I have that sense of humor, right? But in the greeting card world, I became an executive. Now, I was told, and by the way, I might be a little overdressed today. I walked in here this morning, I'm like, Hi, everybody, Steve Gilliland. On behalf of the National Association of Elementary School Principals, it is an honor for me to be here today to present to you a message focused on how we endure and emerge from this unexpected and difficult time. Now, my background in speaking to educational groups is as follows. And these are exact numbers, and you're saying exact numbers. Well, let's just say that I've had a little time in my hands to do a lot of things I never did before. And one of them was to go back and look and see that I have spoken to 160 schools and school districts, not including this year where I've got 4 already scheduled in August, and I have addressed 59 educational associations. Primarily, I have spoken the topic of making a difference, a matter of purpose, passion, and pride. Now, purpose is what drives you. Passion is what fuels you, and pride defines you. And in education, purpose is the reason why we do what we do. It's the reason we get up in the morning, and it's the reason why we try to make an indelible mark in a child's life and make a huge difference. And then passion. Well, passion, it's what fuels us. Passion is that driving force behind doing it and doing it with a lot of energy. And then there's pride. Pride is doing it better than anybody else does it. Pride is taking it to a level. It's reaching down. It's coloring outside the lines. It's thinking in ways you've never thought. And that is what you need to do today. But I don't want to talk about purpose and passion and pride. What I want to talk about is how do we endure this and how do we emerge from this? But I will bring in a piece that I do when I speak on making a difference, and that is I always ask those in the audience, superintendents, principals, teachers, staff, I always challenge them to think of 5 people that made the biggest difference in their life. And one of the commonalities of the answer when I ask this to a broad group of people is that usually one of the 5 people on their list is a teacher. And that holds true to me. My 6th grade teacher is on my list of 5 people that made the biggest difference in my life. I wouldn't be here today doing what I do. I wouldn't have authored a single book if it wouldn't have been for this teacher. I often wonder what he would be thinking right now and what he would be saying and what he would be doing. And I wish I could go to him and say, hey, listen, what do I say on a video to principals and teachers and staff and students and parents? What do I say to them? And he would have told the parents, you don't need to be the perfect teacher. You don't need to be the perfect mom. You just need to be mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, and you need to mentor. You need to motivate your children during this. You know, you used to motivate them to do their homework, which was homework. Now you motivate them to do homework, which is their schoolwork, like they're in school. But you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. I'm sure he would tell the students that there's learning beyond the classroom. I still remember him saying to me, some of the lessons you'll learn I could never teach you in this classroom. He was a great teacher. He taught social studies. But I know for everything that he taught me in social studies, the thing that he was concerned most about was what would happen after I graduated. You see what we're going through right now, this pandemic that we're enduring, it goes beyond curriculum. It goes so far reaching beyond where we're at. He would tell students that the greatest lesson you're probably learning is that change is inevitable and growth is optional. Because life is about changes, but it's also about choices. So he'd have told every student, these are the times when you'll have to make a choice. But you'll have to embrace it. Don't fight it. Embrace the change. Because some of the greatest advancements in our lives come as a result of some of the biggest challenges and changes we've faced. What would he have told staff? I know what he'd have told staff. I mean, think of staff. Think of that person that walks into the school, the first person they see behind the counter, a big smile. And what does that person do? He would have told staff, keep doing what you're doing. Keep encouraging parents. Keep encouraging students. Keep encouraging teachers. Keep encouraging the principals. You see, for me, staff, the staff is that part of the educational piece that sometimes don't have the visibility, and yet they provide so much hope. While they don't know the troubles and the challenges that face a parent, a student, a teacher, a principal, they're there to provide support. So keep doing what you're doing. And then he'd have told the teachers. He'd have told the teachers to fill their own cup first. He'd have said that you can't fill another person's cup unless yours is filled first. He'd have said, you can't provide happiness unless you're happy. When you think about this, think about the oxygen mask that falls down on an airplane. You think about the flight attendant when she does the demonstration and she says, now if in the event that it would fall, make sure you put yours on first so that you can assist someone else. You see, as a teacher, he'd make sure you understood, take care of yourself. Why? Because you become the priority, because you've got to fill your own cup first if you're ever going to fill someone else's cup. He'd have told principals, lead. Lead. Martin Luther King Jr. used to say, the measure of a person isn't determined during comfortable times. It's determined during challenging times. Oh, I know you need to have a Skype call. I know you need to bring the staff together, but you know what you need to do? In these situations, you need to reach out to every single teacher. And you need to have a one-on-one conversation. You need to tell them how valued they are. You need to tell them how much you appreciate them. You need to say, I wouldn't want to be a principal in this school if you weren't a teacher here. I appreciate you. Principals in the high school level. Call the students. Who? The seniors. Every senior needs to hear your voice. Do you know what it would mean to a senior? I'll tell you what it would mean to a senior because I talked to one. A gentleman that lives in our neighborhood, and I said, what is it like to be a senior? And he started talking about the prom, and he started to talk about graduation ceremony, and he said, it just, I never imagined this. He then said something. He said, but you know what made it all better? Stunned, I said, well, yeah, man, I'm all ears on this one. He said, what made it better was when my principal called me. He said, I haven't said 2 words probably to him. He said, we seen him in assembly, we see him in the hall. He has this stature of, he's the boss. But when he called and said that he was proud of me, when he called and said how grateful he was that I was a senior at that high school, and that if he could do anything, if he could bring stars down from heaven, if he could wave a magic wand, he said, I would have a graduation ceremony and I'd have 10 proms for you. But I don't know what we're going to do. All I know is that I care about you, and I'm glad you're a senior at this high school. He said, the student to me, you know what made it all better? I don't know if that made it all better, but I know this. It was right out of the textbook of my 6th grade teacher. You see, whether you're the parent, the student, the staff member, the teacher, or the principal, in order to endure this, you have to find the silver linings. You have to realize how far beyond the curriculum this goes. You have to get creative. You have to do things that you normally didn't do. You have to make phone calls you never made. You have to send that email. And I'm not saying email and social media. I'm not saying don't do it. What I'm saying is, though, a personal phone call to connect with that student is so important. I'm very fortunate to have within my proximity all of those categories. And what do I mean by that is, I talked to a parent. And I said, what are your fears? What gives you hope? And they smiled and they said, what's great is, I've got a little girl that didn't want to go to school. I got a little girl that I had to just beg and just push out the door. And now she said, I miss school. Wow. I asked a teacher. You know what she said? It's not knowing. It's not knowing. I asked a student. His response was, I just like to hear their voice. Comfort. I just like to hear their voice. Oh yeah, mom and dad are at home, but this is a person they spend so much time with because they're at school. I just need to hear their voice. And when I talk to a principal, a friend of mine that I golf with, He said, my biggest challenge is also my biggest hope, and that is that the challenges and the turns that they're having to take and all the blind curves, all of those things will make them stronger. You see, for me, Mr. Reed is on my list of 5 people that made the biggest difference in my life. I don't know who's on your list of 5, but I do know this. That at the end of this pandemic, as we emerge, there are 3 words that I hope are a part of that process. I hope you emerge grateful. I hope you emerge grateful for the perspective that you may have gotten enlarged. The appreciation, the things that you know are important that maybe you took for granted. The silver lining of being grateful for the fact that you sit with your family more. The interaction. The walk in the neighborhood. The person that you saw a face but you didn't know the name. You knew nothing until all of a sudden, practicing social distancing, you were out for a walk and you had your first conversation. You see, as we emerge, we need to be grateful for the lessons that this taught us. For the new beginning, for the resurgence, for the rebooting, if you will. Because when the fall comes, we need to emerge grateful. We also need to emerge confident. Confident. You see, what you go through in life, as the principal said, those twists, those turns, and those blind curves, what you go through in life will either make you bitter or better, stronger or weaker. I trust that you will become stronger from this. I trust that you will become better because of this. When I was at the lowest point in my life, I'll never forget saying to my mom, "Mom, my life is over as I know it." She said, "Your life is only beginning, son." She said, "Because you see, what you're going to go through right now is going to test you. And what you go through right now is going to either make you bitter or better, stronger or weaker." And you need to be determined. Through this, you need to emerge determined. Why? Because come this fall, you need to remember that in a single moment, in a single instant, in a single classroom, in a single hallway, in a single parking lot, on a bus, in the office, no matter where, you as an educator can change the trajectory of a child's life. You, in a single moment, can change their direction. You see, this pandemic is a process that's playing out, but even it can shape and form and mold and fashion children in a way that we never imagined if we continue to say it is what we make it. Stop saying it is what it is. It is what we make it. Be determined to make it positive. Be determined to make it something that when we look back, we'll say, wow, wouldn't want to go through it again, but because of it, I became this. Because of it, I learned this. Because of my 6th grade teacher, I stand in front of you today. Because he made a difference. He made an indelible mark in my life. And because of my 6th grade teacher, those 3 words that I'm challenging each of you to emerge with, emerge grateful and confident and determined. I leave you with those 3 words because for me, grateful, and I wish he was here to say, I appreciate you. Every superintendent, every principal, every teacher, I appreciate you. Confident, I believe in you. I believe in what you do. I believe in the impact that you have, and I believe in the lives that you change, and you influence that change every day. Yeah, confident, I believe in you. And determination, we're all stronger because of you. You see, when I see people say, stay strong and press on, I know they're trying to convey a message of determination. But because of what you do every single day, we are stronger. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you. But most of all, thank you for making a difference.